So I figured I'd give a little insight on what happened with my PA buck. I guess now thinking about it, it wasn't too crazy. Everything that happened could have been avoided if I wouldn't have been so impatient. Let's put it that way. So I shot that buck at about, let's see, 2 hours, an hour and a half before, no, about an hour and a half before sunset. And I told the guy that was living next to the property that I was hunting on, who also hunted that property just a little bit, I said, do you want to come down, give it like till dark and come down and help me try to track this buck? And of course, he was all about it. And I would do the same thing for him. I live just right down the road from him. I'm only like 200 yards away from the PA border. So that's the piece of property that I hunt on. So with that being said, he came down, he looked for a little while, and from the shot placement of this buck, there was no blood. And when I first shot it, I hit it with a 2-inch Grim Reaper. Or I guess a 2-inch, I don't know. That's what it was supposed to be. The penetration was supposed to be 2 inches. And it did. It opened wide open. And I could see it. 3 slices. Boom, boom, boom. Like a triangle. And I thought for sure when I hit it, I'm like, I got him. Everything's good. At this point, I'll just let him lay for a little while. So like I said, it was about an hour and a half before dark. And then the guy that was helping me track him, I was sitting up in my tree stand just anxious, shivering, freaking out, ready to get down and get right after him. And I thought for sure we're just going to get down, we're going to go out to where I hit him at, find blood, and just follow him till he's dead. That's what it seemed like. Is it always like that? No. Anybody that's hunted long enough knows that when you shoot a bow, what first seems to be one thing always ends up being another. Even if it is a really good shot, you go and look at it and you're like, either 1, it wasn't as good as I thought it was, or 2, holy shit, it's 10 times better than I thought it was, and I just got blood everywhere. So you never really know, which is, it is what it is. It's part of the allure, I guess, of bow hunting. So he comes down, and I tell him, where I shot the deer at. Excuse me. And we go not even 20 yards from where I shot him at, and we start to pick up blood. Because I told him, I'm like, I know he followed these trees exactly right in between them. There was like 5 or 6 trees, and he went right in between all of them. So I'm like, there's got to be something in between these trees somewhere. And sure as shit, he was the first one to find something. And he goes, right here, boom. So we pick it up, and it's really light blood with some gutty matter in it. And I'm like, fuck, or shoot. Ooh. The way that I shot him, it didn't look like it looked to me like it would have been all heart or just muscle. Like when I looked back at it, because I had to face the tree that my hang on was on. I had to go down on tippy toes and then kneel down under a branch, lean and shoot. And when I shot him, I mean, it sounded like I hit a brick. But I could see that my arrow was out of both sides of him. But my luminoc never went off. My lighted knock never went off. So I was like, oh shit. So I'm just watching him in my binoculars for a while. And I could see that he followed for about 20, 25 yards into the woods. There's a spot where there's a tree that at the very top, the moss is all rubbed off of from deer jumping off of it. Well, the doe that he was with, and this was like 3 weeks ago. So now it's October 9th. So this was, damn, I don't remember. I'm going to say 2 weeks. So they weren't even rutting yet or anything, but for some reason he was hooked up to this doe and did not want to leave her. And I watched him. When I shot him, that doe ran to that log, or those logs, and then instead of jumping over like the regular deer trail is, every single one of them, I mean, you go to it and there's probably it's like 6 inches deep of just mud on either side from where they've jumped over and landed. Nothing. She took to the left as I'm watching it. She took to the left and he followed her. So I knew that much, but I still wasn't exactly sure where he really ended up. We've been waiting for this youth season. He had basketball. So, like I said, this guy comes down, he helps me after, I mean, at this point, once we really got on the blood trail, it was probably 2 hours. And we follow the blood trail in about 30 yards. We find that little spot of blood. And then we could see where I said that he had turned. I'm like, I know he turned somewhere before this log. So then, as soon as he turns from there, and he gets into all the multi-floor rows, whatever, he starts to open up like crazy. And I don't know if it was just catching his wound and it was just making him open up or what, but he was just bleeding out, just clumps of blood everywhere. So I'm like, oh shit. So we turned, we looked, and we followed it for about 10 feet, and all of a sudden, boom, we hear something just running through the woods. So then I stop him, and I'm like, hang on a minute, I think that might have been him. And then the dumber part of my brain was like, well, he was following a doe. So maybe they went into a spot together, bedded down, and that doe got up and ran, and he's sitting there dead. Because we were only like 15 yards away from whatever ran. I mean, we were not very far away from it whatsoever. So we go in there and we look, and sure as shit, there was nothing. There was just one giant puddle of blood. I mean, like this. And I'm like, well, fuck. So my arrow had broken off at that point, and I had never found the part of my arrow that broken off. Well, I didn't know that it broke off yet. It wasn't until we followed it like 30 more yards, I found my broken arrow. And then I told him, I'm like, let's just back out of here. I said, I'm going to call a tracker in the morning and see if he wants to come down and check it out. So sure as shit, I called that Tyler's Big Game Recovery. I can't remember for sure, but I think he's out of Sugar Grove. He was at my house at 8:30. I took my four-wheeler up and met him because I only hunt the PA line, which is, I don't know, not even a half mile from my house. So we got up there and I asked him, I'm like, do you want me to take you where we found the last blood, or what would you like to do? Because this is the first time I've ever used a dog to retrieve a deer. And I was actually pretty excited about it because I've coon hunted before. I've used hounds to hunt coyotes. I've done all sorts of dog work before. Not personally, but I've gone with to go and do it. And there's nothing like hearing a hound bay or watching a dog get on a trail. And I mean, it's just something, there's something about it that's just cool as shit. So I was pretty excited about it. And he goes, well, just take me to the shot site. And I'm like, well, just so you know, the shot site has no blood. I said, I looked everywhere. I said, unless I overlooked it, there's no blood there whatsoever. And he goes, that's all right. Just bring me right there. And I said, okay. So there was 2 trees that buck was sitting behind before he finally stepped out and gave me his closest leg far out to try to drill an arrow into. So what I mean by that is when he stepped out, his far leg was forward and the leg nearest to me was back, and that's how he was eating for the longest time. And he was really tucked in hard because he was eating acorns way over here, and then coming back over here, way over here. And finally, after I was drawn back for what felt like 15 minutes, which was probably like 30 seconds, he put that one leg forward, and that's when I just let it rip. I said, as soon as he steps forward, I'm just going to let it go. He was the nicest buck I'd seen at this property that I hunted this year. I went in there blind. I just went in when I set the tree stand up. I kind of went by if I were a deer where I would want to be traveling. You know, you want the easiest path of resistance, the biggest food sources, and there was water nearby. And they were all within 40 yards of each other. So I'm like, this has got to be, you know, the trail alone has got to be the spot. Even if they're going out and getting a drink, coming back, eating some acorns, eating some crab apples, walking back and forth, chasing some does right here, this is going to be where it's going to happen. I didn't know that for a fact, but that's just what it seemed like to me. So I end up calling a dog tracker the next day. The dude's fucking kick ass. His dog was amazing. Well, like I said earlier, it's Tyler's Big Game Recovery. He's on Facebook and stuff, and you can find him online. But that fucking dog came in, and I asked him, I'm like, do you want me to take you to the last spot where I seen blood, or do you want me to take you to the last spot where he was shot? You know, I didn't really know how it worked. Never done it before. Again, it's the first time. And he said, just take me to the shot site. Okay. So, in my mind, I'm already thinking we're gonna be out all day. So I'm like, you know, noon comes around, we're still out. I'm gonna leave him to just keep tracking. I'll know roughly where he's at. I'm gonna go get some money out of the bank, go grab us some lunch, come back, and just follow up with him and see what's going on. Well, that dog got on that trail right where I shot that buck and beeline towards the logs. And in my head, I'm like, I know every deer, 90% of them jumps over those logs. So if he at least makes that left turn 90 just before that little set of logs, I'll know we're on to something. Because before that one doe and that one buck, every single buck and doe I'd seen had jumped over those two logs. And like I said, you could see it was visual confirmation that that's what was going on. So sure as shit, that dog just takes off straight towards those logs and looks like he's just gonna go right underneath them. And I'm like, fuck, here we go. He's just chasing tails. And all of a sudden he just takes a left. Voomp. Right where my buck went. So then I hear the guy ask me, was this the bed? Because he asked me to stay about 30 yards behind him, 20 to 30 yards. So I'd run up real quick and look, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is the bed right here. I'm like, and from the bed I told him, because when I found the broken arrow, I left it like probably 20 feet away from where the bedding area was. So I'm like, you should be passing by an arrow anytime soon, you know, if he's on the right track. And he didn't hear me say that, and I just kept going. And all of a sudden, I just went right by the arrow. I could see it. So I picked it up, and I couldn't remember where it was until the dog brought me past it. So we get back out to the field where me and the guy the night before ended up. And it's almost like he took our exact route. So then I started to worry again. And I was like, okay, now this dude is, you know, this dog is definitely following me and this guy's tracks. So he goes out a little bit, like 20 feet or so, and then all of a sudden you could see it was like a switch just went off in his head, and he just went boom. And the 30 foot of lead that this guy had on this dog was just maxed out. Boom. And we were gone. And we went all the way back to my tree stand. And I had shot the buck 20 yards away from my tree stand. So behind my tree stand, there's like a little triangle that I would say is probably like 80 foot long either way by like 60 foot wide. And he kept going back and forth into that. Back to my tree stand, back to that, back to my tree stand, back to that. And then I started getting real worried because I'm like, well, he just followed our scent back here is what he did. Like, that's what was going on in my head. I'm like, he just followed us back here, you know, yada, yada, whatever. And I could tell the guy that was helping me out, Tyler, he could tell that I was getting nervous. So he said, he's just trying to get back on your deer's hoof. He said, there's something here. He goes, he's giving me a sign that he knows that there's a deer, basically. And I'm like, all right, I don't know. I've never done it before again. I'm just leaving my faith in the hands of this gentleman and his dog. And then all of a sudden, the dog just takes off, boom, through the goldenrod. And I said, you want me to follow you? He goes, no, stay there in case he comes back. And I said, all right. So he goes about 60 feet through the goldenrod. Then I could see the dog doing the same thing on this other tractor path, because like I said, it comes down like a piece of pie into this big field. There's 2 tractor paths. So he hits the other one. And then the dog just does a bunch of circles and jets into the woods. So then I see him following him into the woods. And for a second, it looked like he was almost unsure, like, oh boy, like, here we go in a big fucking circus. And then a second later, I could still see him sitting out from where I was to where he was. So I was about 10 feet behind my tree stand. He was about 60 yards away. And all of a sudden he just goes, got him. And boom, that dog was right on top of that fucking buck. So that buck, I shot him in front of the tree stand about 20 yards. He ran or jotted at 20, 30 yards. Then went 15 yards into the brush, bedded down while I was still up in the tree stand, and as I had gotten down. And if I would have just let him sit there and lay, he would have been dead right there the next morning, or within 5 or 6 hours anyways. But when we went and got him, he wasn't stiff in the slightest bit, and I shot him. Like I said, it was like 5:30 in the afternoon the night before. Sunset was at like 6:30, I think, something like that. And then we jumped him up. And I can't remember when me and that other kid got out of the woods, but regardless, it was pretty early, because when I came home, my kids were still up. So it was, it was like 9 o'clock, something like that. We were out of the woods and back home. I was, anyways. So we found him the next morning. Me and him met up there at 8:30. Went looking for him. We found him by 8:40, maybe 8:35, something like that. And that was after walking down the hill. It was a pretty long walk down to where my tree stand was, so it wasn't like, So it literally took about 20 minutes maybe to find that deer. So when I grabbed him, and he even said, and I was thinking in my head when I picked him up, he was completely limp when I picked him up. And in my head, I'm like, this fucker just died like a couple hours ago. So as soon as I said that, when I was picking him up and looking at him, and he looks, and he goes, I think that deer just died a couple hours ago. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because he literally, he's not stiff at all. He's perfectly limp. So him and the dog got pictures, and I got my pictures done, this, that, and everything. Got him home. I was pretty pumped. I left him on the back of the four-wheeler for a little while and just let some guys come up and, some guys from work and shit come and check him out, because he was only a 7-point, but for a 7-point, he was a pretty big 7-point. He wasn't just like a little basket rack or anything. He had some ass to him. I mean, he wasn't a record breaker or anything. It wasn't like a 140-inch 7-point, but he was just over 115 inches when I measured him green. He was 115 and 3/8. But yeah, so that was pretty much the story of the 7-point buck. And I will say too, another thing, when I went to shoot him, I thought he was a 6-point, so I was gonna let him go. But I'm like, Mingy, he has got quite a bit of mass, and at least his G2s look pretty decent. So I kept getting down looking, and I'm like, one of those two sides has got to have a brow tine. So I'm looking and looking, and I finally found a side that I thought was reasonable. And when I shot him at a spot in my tree stand. Like I said, I was facing my tree. I had to break a branch away. He never heard it. The doe did. The doe ran about 20 feet and turned around and looked. He just kept eating acorns like nothing was going on. So I held that in my hand until she started eating again, and I just let it go. And then when I let it go and it dropped to the ground, she looked back again and didn't do anything, and he didn't move again. He was still, this whole time, every movement that I did, his vitals, his eyes were right towards me. He could have seen me any moment. But his vitals were all covered. So I ended up having to crouch down and get on my tippy toes to lean forward. And that's when I drew my bow back. And I held my bow back like that. And like I said, it was probably 30 seconds. But by the time I made that shot, it felt like I was standing there like that for 5 minutes. My quads and my calves and my feet were just a-burning. But I was so pumped because it felt like I got such a good shot at him, because he jumped up in the air like I got a good shot. He did a big bleh, like he was coughing up something. And then he took off, and I'm like, man, I think I might have double lunged him. Maybe got some liver or something or whatever. Well, once I actually gutted him out, and then here's the hard part too, is that the guy that was there with the dog does not take Venmo. And in my head, I don't know if I ever asked him or not. But in my head, everybody takes Venmo for everything, because that's how I pay for fucking 90% of my bills is Venmo. Well, he didn't take Venmo, so I had to hurry up, gut him out. He was trying to get his dog out of there and shit, because the longer the dog stayed there, the more amped up he got. So I told him, I'm like, I'm going to head down to Southern Chautauqua Federal Credit Union. That's where I do all my banking. I'll pull the cash out there if you want to meet me there. I said, give me like a half hour. Let me just clean this guy out, blah, blah, whatever. Oh, okay. Well, as you can see in the pictures, the buck looks pretty skinny. It doesn't look like a big buck. So I gutted him out, got everything out of him. I left all the innards that I wanted left in him, which is basically just the liver and heart. And then when I went to pick him up, put him on the back of the four-wheeler, I could not get him up there. He was so floppy and heavy. I was like, you've got to be shitting me. I mean, he wasn't super, super heavy, but I bet you dressed. He was probably 180 pounds. I would almost guarantee it, just thinking about my own weight. And then what I had to do was I kneeled him up like he was sitting cross-legged almost. And then I got my arms underneath his elbows. And then I picked him up, and then with one knee, I just kind of threw him on the back of the four-wheeler. And he was half falling off, and I grabbed his ass, and I was able to haul him up there. And then I realized I had nothing to fucking keep him down with. So I went back to my tree stand, and all the shit that I had to, because I had a bunch of, what the hell do they call those? I'm having a brain fart. Whatever. Like rubber ties that I was using when I would get up my tree stand and I would let my bag hang. If I had shit hanging out of it or whatever, if I had to have it open permanently, I would keep it hugged to the tree with a couple tie downs. Just to make sure shit wasn't blowing around. So that's pretty much how it went. And I used the two that I had that I used for my backpack to keep my buck tied down to the back of my four-wheeler while I drove it back to my house, which was, again, about a half mile down the road, 3/4 of a mile, something like that. So yeah, once I got him here, I just finished getting them cleaned up, and like I said, some guys from work stopped and just kind of looked and bullshitted, and that's pretty much it. I guess I wish I had a more exciting story for you, but I don't. So besides that, I already got my deer back. It's in the my meat. I switched up the freezer, got that in there. The doe that I shot, I got that all cut up and put away. If anybody has a good idea on an upright freezer, I wouldn't mind hearing it, because I think that's what I'm going to do instead of my deep freezer, because everybody knows the drill. You get a deep freezer or a chest freezer, and everything just gets put on top of everything, and then all of a sudden the shit in the very bottom gets forgotten about and freezes to death. You can't even cook it. So yeah, that's where we're at now. Now I'm just trying to fill my New York tag. I got some bobcat sets out. Once gun season starts, then I'm gonna go out and put some more. Well, not more, but basically all my bobcat sets are gonna turn into coyote sets. And where I'm trapping at this year, the one critter, if I could get it, I would stop trapping for the year just because I want to get it mounted, would be a gray fox. I got one big male red fox right now mounted up in my dining room. I'd like to get a gray fox to match it. You know, have the same body structure, but the opposite, put it on the opposite side of the room. I think that'd be cool. But that's where we're at. So, yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on PA buck, just so you guys had an idea. I'm gonna make a little video and, excuse me, I'm tired of shit right now. I'm gonna put all those up there together, and
Well, after punching a tag in early September on a nice buck, my next adventure took me to the mountains with Ted.
yeah, that's pretty much it. Now I'm just waiting on my New York buck. I'm gonna go hunt rifle season for bear in PA. And other than that,
and I'm looking forward to getting back in the field with a bow in my hand.
I have a buck tag for rifle season in New York, and another bear tag for New York, which I'll try to use, but I'm not going to be too crazy about it because I'd love to shoot another bear, but it's not like whitetail. You can't just go out there and just stand near, you know, a tree for hours and hours and hours and think that something's going to come by. It just won't happen.
However, there are several spots that I've e-scouted on OnX that look promising.
But yeah, we'll see. All right. You guys have a good one. See you.